Chloe, welcome to Talks. Finally, my friend. I'm so happy to finally have you here. So we just finished an incredible Reiki session. For some reason, I'm getting emotional, but anyway.
Oh,
But I feel much more better, so that's exciting.
so glad to hear that.
So
It was
tell
a
me
great session.
a little bit about yourself. We're both in Mauritius, both South African. For anyone that doesn't know, we're both South African, married to Mauritian men. Um, what are you doing? Just share with everyone listening your
Okay.
story.
Okay, thank you. So just thank you so much for having me. We've been trying to do this session and we're finally here.
I know.
So yeah, I am South African, as you said, and I've been living in Mauritius now for 5.5 years. I can't believe it.
Yes.
I've got two beautiful little boys, Sage and Sky, 5 and 4 years old. And yeah, just personally, I have always been very inclined towards wellness. It's always been my industry. I think having grown up in quite a wellness orientated family and a gran who always eat your vegetables was always, how I grew up. And my journey really started with just falling in love with yoga as a self-healing practice. And I think just really experiencing firsthand the self-transformation through the practice really just made me fall in love, and just it's like a need to share it really. I was like, everyone has to know about this. And so it really took me on an unexpected turn of kind of expecting to just be in corporate and live that 9 to 5 life, and kind of, I guess, from a young age, you think that's what you're supposed to do. And then discovering my passion, and it took me on a completely different path, almost something I couldn't not listen to. When you just have that burning something inside of you that even though the mind and society is telling you to go a certain way, you can't not listen to that fire inside you. And so, at a very young age, I think I was 23, I literally quit my job in just wanting to pursue this career as yoga, but also discover more about my own truth. I really at that stage was asking a lot of questions. Who are we? What are we? What is this reality all about? And that became my priority. I was like, this for me right now is more important than anything else. And I really went on a deep journey in that way of deep diving into all these spiritual teachings and meditation and reading all the books, and but also trying all the different modalities myself to really find what my truth was. And it was from there that just became my industry. I started teaching wherever I could, sharing wherever I could, expanded into lots of different trainings and around nutrition, but also a lot of different energy work trainings. And so it's just my passion really, to really deep dive into, I guess, the deeper layer of existence that we maybe don't always look into.
Not this just physical thing.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what is underneath? What is underneath the surface of this all? I was very, I guess, I grew up quite spiritually and religiously, and so I guess I always had that connection to the spiritual layer of things. And so it took me on that journey, of which I'm still very much on today.
Yes. And yoga specifically, you did yoga before you decided to follow that journey, or it was just something that you were drawn to?
Yes, so I had very good friends at the time, and he was just always saying, like, you have to try yoga, you have to try yoga, it's therapy. And eventually I gave in to him and I was like, okay, let me go try this thing. And it was Kundalini yoga, which is quite a specific lineage of yoga that is more energetic inclined than your hatha yoga. And so it really was like love at first experience. In that practice, it really, I think, just awoken something deep within me that I was just like, whoa, there's something here to be learned. There's something here. It allowed me to tap into a layer of myself that I hadn't really accessed before. And I became quite obsessed, really. I'd just gone through a breakup of a 7-year relationship.
Oh, wow.
So gone from living with someone, having someone every day, and I think that also I kind of threw myself into the yoga. But the transformation that I went through, I would say in a 3 to 4 month period, was truly astounding. And I think that was just where I really started seeing the truth and the depth of this practice, that it is so much more than exercise. And that really was the catalyst of my journey. So it started very much as a self practice. Yeah, probably for 2 years until the point where I just knew I wanted to be a teacher.
Oh, wow. So our journeys actually align a little bit there because you basically threw yourself into your yoga after the breakup, where I threw myself into the Pilates after my dad's death.
Okay, interesting.
It's like, I think I started the course a week after he was dead.
Wow.
So, and it is, like you said, it was like a healing. It was my healing journey at the same time, almost.
Yes.
So, and then Reiki, how did Reiki form part of, because I can imagine that they work very well together. They complement each other very well.
Very much so.
So why Reiki? Because that's a pretty new thing that you've been doing.
Yeah, it's been about a year and a half. But now looking back and knowing what Reiki is, I realized that in many ways I was already doing it.
Yes.
I just didn't know it was that.
Okay.
So I think in many ways you start working with that Reiki energy. So Reiki energy is pure light, pure source frequency. It's a frequency, it's an energy that you're drawing in and working with. It's like the purest frequency of creation.
So nothing evil.
No. It's the purest light frequency you can connect to.
Wow.
And so in Kundalini Yoga, you work, Kundalini Yoga, there's a lot of meditation. You work a lot with this white light energy where you'll do meditations and draw it into the body. And so I guess I really started learning how to sort of harness that energy or work with it. And I did this a lot in my pregnancies, actually, where I would draw this energy in and like send it to my babies in my womb and visualize that energy going into them. So for a while, I'd been learning with that energy. And then I did different energy trainings in Cape Town, where you learn how to basically set up healing grid spaces or
safe space.
Yeah, like temple grid spaces. So did different trainings that I would say facilitated that as well. And then I actually about a year and a half ago started getting visions of me healing people.
No way.
I would literally just out of nowhere get a visual of me like working with someone on a table, or I started having vivid dreams about it and just started really being like, wow, I would actually love to do that. That really feels like the next level of my practice.
Yes.
And I didn't think much about it. I didn't know really how to go about it. And then my mom actually invited me to a full moon event at a Reiki school here in Mauritius. Never heard of them, never been there. And it was just such a beautiful group of people. And the energy was just so pure. And it was just, I was just like, this is, I know this is it. This is what I have to do. So I literally just signed up for the course there and then pretty much. And that's when my journey into Reiki started. But I think I was very blessed in the sense of having sort of almost 10 years prior work.
It's almost preparing you
Exactly.
a little bit.
Exactly. And I can see now how my experience in yoga and the other trainings I did created such a solid foundation for me to step into this work in terms of how, like the yoga specifically, taught me how energy should flow in the body. For example, your energy should come up, around, and back in. And lots of people I work on, there just isn't that energy circuit happening. It just literally goes out. And so, there's no flow back. And these are the people who are always drained, always burnt out, because there's no return of the energy. And so these are then things that facilitate that correct flow of energy. But also the yoga showed me, how the different energy centers or the chakras should be open and working and flowing. And so it gave me this incredible depth of insight into the energy structure of the body and the energy body, so that when I stepped into the Reiki, it's almost like I had this great foundation to build upon. And so I think if I compare how the level I maybe was at with other people just starting in the Reiki, I was, I can say very far ahead because of these other trainings and understandings that I'd had.
And how do you think your practice would have been different if you actually did Reiki all those years ago when you did your yoga?
My Reiki practice.
With your yoga all those years ago, do you think it would have made a big difference?
Yeah.
Than if you did it now with all that like foundational work that you subconsciously basically have been doing for all these years?
I think it would have, progressed a bit hand in hand, but I could see, like everything, it's just the perfect timing because also I can only facilitate a healing to the level at which I've healed myself. I can only go to the depth to which I've gone within myself. And so I think all the trainings and all the time and energy I've spent in that space with myself is I'm able to facilitate that in another because I've gone through that journey myself. And so very often I'm taking people through processes that I've facilitated within myself. And so I think while absolutely the Reiki and the yoga could have grown hand in hand, but as I said, I think it's allowed me to start at quite a beautiful depth of layer. And because it's such a delicate space you're holding for people. You're literally holding space for their soul to be opened. And sometimes some really scary things come out. And to be able to hold that space with love for someone to be in their literally, I think, the most vulnerable space you can be, also requires a level of maturity, but also the fact that I've been into those vulnerable spaces within myself, I think has allowed me to safely learn how to hold that space for another person.
And I think that's why you're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
Because, and I said that the other day to someone, it's very difficult for me as a person to go to for a therapist, for example. And how can I expect to be helped by someone who has no previous life experiences? It's very difficult. So for you, healing and working with people's souls, when you've already done all that work on your own soul, it makes the whole experience so much more special.
Yeah, and I think people feel safe, which is the most important.
That's very important. And I mean, with you, we feel very safe. We had a very good giggle in the session we had now. So, and I've known about Reiki for years. And I remember I said in my studio still in South Africa, I was like, I would love to try a Reiki session because at that time already, I felt like I need it. And I was always a little bit nervous because, like you said, I was also grew up very religious and stuff. And you have that. I think it's a big misconception that people throw at us, especially the older generations. Like, oh my God, this is now you're opening up and messing with portals that you don't want to go down. And if for someone who's new to Reiki, how would you explain it to them? What is it and what does the session involve?
So Reiki is an ancient healing art that started in ancient Japan, but it's also believed to be the same healings done in ancient Egypt, for example. So it's a very long lineage. And all it is really coming into the understanding that you are energy, that everything around us is energy and motion. Everything has a frequency. This couch has a frequency. The words I'm speaking has a frequency. Every thought you think has a frequency. And it's all just vibrating at different vibrations. But we obviously can't see it. And so what Reiki does is coming into the understanding that you are an energy body, living in an energetic universe. And so essentially we all have an energy body it's different for everyone, but easily around 10 to 15 meters
like a bubble.
beyond a bubble. Okay. It's basically your energy bubble that contains your energy. It holds your personal energy field so that your energy isn't just leaking out. It holds your energy body together. And every experience you have, every thought, every word is a frequency going out through that field, and every experience you have is energy coming in. So it's almost like your filter. It's your energetic filter that is through which you process everything. So now if you thought that you had very long hair, right? That you never brushed or washed your hair. And after years and years that your hair just got entangled and you never washed it and you wouldn't even be able to get a brush through it, right? So your energy body is the same thing. You can almost think of it on a very obviously energetic layer. It's like we've almost got these ethereal hairs that come out of our body through which we receive light energy and give light energy out. It's how we receive this information of everything going on. And so after years and years of never cleaning that energy, it basically densifies in your energy field and becomes entangled and heavy. And so people end up living their life feeling heavy, feeling drained, feeling stuck, feeling stagnant. And the reason is because all that heavy energy is now culminated in their field. And it does create blocks in your life. It's like you want to move forward. It's like the energy's trying to go out, but it's blocked. Or you're trying to call something new into your life, but there's so much shit in your energy field that it actually can't come in. So you find yourself in this uncomfortable position that most people spend their whole lives in, not knowing that actually you can feel a whole lot lighter. So that's the first thing I do is I literally clean out and open up that whole energy field so that all those beautiful ethereal hairs are just flowing beautifully so light energy is coming in and out of the body. Okay. And then I check all the different energy centers of the body. And this is usually where different forms of trauma or different unprocessed emotional energy is stored in the body. So, for example, on the heart, maybe you experienced a severe loss when you were younger, and that grief is still sitting on the heart. So I will pick that up, I'll feel that energy and clear it. And it's usually also linked to some sort of letting go or acceptance that needs to take place. But also what happens is, and it's been amazing to work on people who have disease and to actually see what is causing the disease. And it is prolonged negative emotional states of being. And so, for example, if that grief is sitting on the heart for years and years and years and years, it grows and it grows and it festers, and that's where your heart disease comes from. There's always a cause behind the disease. True. So, and that's where I think the yoga and the Reiki is so complementing, because yes, you can do all the breath work you want in yoga and you can do heart chakra opening positions, but in my experience, it's like the yoga can only go to such a depth. Yes. And then it's like the Reiki goes into that energetic soul level healing. To clear that, what the Reiki does is we go to the source of where that energy first started, and we heal and transform that so that coming into your present self, you're not carrying that energy anymore.
When you were explaining the haze and that feeling of heaviness, I got it sounded a bit like anxiety. Mm-hmm. Do you think anxiety can be linked to a lot of people, like a blocked energy source?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, most people I work on, anxiety sits in the stomach. Okay. And it's usually what I sense when I work on people, it's like this tightness. Yeah. And it's like after prolonged like tightness, and that's where people with like sort of bowel issues or these kind of issues start. But yeah, absolutely. The anxiety is linked to all of that, like still holding on to certain beliefs from childhood or certain patterns of behavior or whatever it is. So again, we'll go into that and say, okay, the anxiety started when you were 5 years old and your father always used to shout at you because of X, Y, and Z. And so we go back to that, we heal that and release that and where that source of anxiety started.
Oh, wow. Okay, but now I can just imagine. You are stepping into that person's space, that heaviness, you can almost call it. Where do you as a person personally have to be at, I assume, physically and mentally? Where do you take yourself? How do you prepare yourself mentally? And how does it look like if I had to see what you're seeing through your eyes? What would I experience?
That's such a good question, because I mean, I literally feel and see and experience everything that comes up in the session. And so it's an incredible journey for me, but also sometimes I am going into quite deep places with people, and but I know I'm so protected in that.
Because I was going to ask, how do you protect yourself from not carrying everyone else's heaviness and darkness with you?
So it's really we in our training we learn different ways to create that separation. Okay. But also before every session I do, as my training before, I grid the space so that it's an energetic container. I draw in high frequency light to be in the space. So I'm already elevating the frequency of the healing space into that high pure frequency of love and light. Okay. And so it is a protected space to begin with. But what we were saying before is I can see through my experience in yoga and meditation and the trainings I've done has allowed me to hold this space. Because essentially what I am doing when I'm giving the Reiki session is I am holding myself in a state of meditation for the duration of the session. Okay, wow. So I have to be completely present, completely focused. And then what I'm doing is I'm essentially moving my consciousness, my awareness into that person's energy field or into that area of the body that I'm working on to read the energy. So the best way I can think to explain it is it's like how a television works. Okay. A television literally receives the frequency and projects the picture of that frequency. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Like a human TV. Yeah, exactly. So I'm reading the energy of the heart. I feel grief. I feel the emotion that's sitting there. And then I get a picture. I see the death of the parent. I see the breakup. I see the story that happened. That is the energy that's sitting there. And then I communicate that to the client and say, this is what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. Did you have a really bad situation with the ex-partner where he was abusive? And it's generally always yes. And then we work through that healing of whatever it is. So it's a very profound process. It's a very profound experience for me. Yes. Because energy doesn't lie. True. And so it's a beautiful space to hold for people. It's very intimate. It's very vulnerable. And it's not for the faint of heart. Healing is not for the faint of heart. It's very easy to just go on and live your life. But for those who have the courage to look at their shit and to do the healing work, there is so much reward on the other side of that, because we are meant to be beings of joy. We are meant to be operating at our fullest potential. We are meant to show up as our fullest expression of self. But the only reason we don't is because we've got all this heaviness, all this load, all of this that we're still carrying from our past, or beliefs that essentially dims our light, dims our fullest expression. If you think of the purity of a baby, the energy it holds when it's born, it's just pure light. It's pure love. It's pure joy. And basically what happens is as we grow, we have different experiences from parents, from friends, from taking on different beliefs from society. And so that purity of that soul, the purity of the light begins to be diminished, gets placed in a box, becomes distorted. And by the time you're an adult, you're like a distorted expression of the purity of what you are. And if I can explain it in that way, it's almost like Reiki helps you to take off those layers, take off all these different things, so that that pure essence of your soul can actually come through once again.
I can just imagine we had like a scanner of some sort of or a camera. Like we did just record most of our session live. But imagine you can find something that can actually project and see that light coming through and all the colors and the layers. And I would love to, because Cedric always laughs at me. It's like, I'm the least visual person, like the worst. I don't know, I won't say imagination, but he can see a painting and be like, oh, this, I can see it hanging there, there, and there. And where I'm like, okay, I trust you, but can you maybe like draw me up like a 3D?
A visual.
A visual of how that, I would love to see it through your eyes, because I can just imagine it's pretty, obviously when you do see the past the heaviness and the darkness, it must be something very beautiful to experience.
It is. And what's really amazing, and again, why the yoga and meditation background has held me in such good stead, is because it's all working with the third eye. So this is the center of our psychic abilities, of that intuition, which I'm working with. It's an intuition. I feel, but I also, as I said, see. I get the picture of what the energy entails. And so it's very interesting for me, because it's things that will come through that I could never have imagined myself. I could never have even thought about this situation myself. And so it really is also, that's the next layer of the state of being I hold, is a channel. So I'm literally opening myself up to receive the insight, receive the guidance, and trust what comes through. It's a big process of trusting, okay, this isn't coming from me, this is coming through. And very often, if I'm not sure of something, I ask for confirmation, like, is this what happened? Is this what is going on? And I get shivers down my arms. So it's like, that's how I get the confirmation of like, yes, that is right. And then I know that's what needs to be done. And so it's very multidimensional. And I know this is like a lot for people to maybe understand if they haven't really tapped into these realms.
Yes.
But it's also, for example, if I'm, let's say, recently I had an amazing session working on a girl who is recovering anorexic. And it was a lot that came up. It was a very deep healing I needed to facilitate, and I felt very out of my depth. And so I have guides that I work with who you connect with in your Reiki training. And so it's like asking for help, asking for guidance, like, okay, what do I do here now? How do I facilitate? What needs to be done to heal this? And then I get the vision of what needs to happen, what process I need to facilitate to shift that.
I'm pretty sure not just anyone can become what you're doing, like a healer. I think you're like a chosen one. You can.
So, I mean, I think if anyone really wanted to, they could walk that path and learn. As I said, this is the culmination of 12 years studies. But I have had in my own Reiki sessions different past lives come up where I have been a healer, I have been a high priestess, and I have done this work before. So I think we do all come into this life with our innate gifts and talents that does set you in good stead. You can say anyone can be an Olympic swimmer if they trained really hard, but if you really don't have the stature or the physical genes or whatever, it is going to be a harder path. So I do think there's a lot of elements, but I do think it is just who I am as well.
And how do you integrate Reiki and yoga with your clients? And like I said, they complement each other very well. But you have a few examples, because you say that when you look back when you did the Reiki training, that you've actually been doing it, a lot of aspects of it in your yoga.
Yes.
I'm not very familiar with yoga. I've only done like a handful of yoga in my whole life. I would love to get deeper into it, but I think I haven't found it. I believe you have to connect with your teacher.
Yes.
In anything that you do in life, you have to connect with the person that you're receiving something from, or it's not gonna work.
Yes.
So explain.
So I think they are incredibly complementing modalities, and almost if you really committed to this path of healing and your own awakening and enlightenment, I think they are beautiful, if not vital tools. Obviously there's many paths and there's many stairways. This has just been my path and journey, and so I can only share my perspective and experience. But as I said before, it's like, again, in my experience and perspective, it's like yoga allows you to go to a certain depth of healing and self-awareness, keeping in mind that yoga is ultimately the practice of enlightenment, which is simply realizing yourself as a creator, as the creator of your life. That is what enlightenment is at its core. It's not this highfalutin thing reserved for the saints and sages of the world. Anyone has the potential to attain that true embodied awareness within themselves, where you're just aware that, okay, I am creating each moment in each moment by what I say, by what I think, by the way I carry myself. I am the creator now of what is to come. That is what enlightenment is. And so yoga, through the different tools that it gives you, through the postures, you're building body awareness. Through the meditation, you're building awareness and control over your mind. Through the pranayama breathwork, you're building that connection to spirit and connection to your own energy source. The breath is our energy source. So yoga almost gives you all these tools to teach you how to consciously drive your car. That is your vehicle. You are the vehicle. We need to learn how to navigate our mental body, our emotional body, our physical body, our spiritual body. And yoga teaches you how to navigate and essentially control these different elements so that you can live in alignment. And so yoga sort of teaches you how to navigate yourself, and of course can facilitate beautiful healings. But it's been my experience that the yoga can take you to a certain level, whereas the Reiki is going into your energy and going into literally your soul story and healing on that level. And so it's quite a hard thing to maybe facilitate within yourself unless you are a trained Reiki practitioner. You can do Reiki on yourself. So, basically after a Reiki session, you've been elevated into a higher frequency. So you've basically cleared out all the density, I've opened up all the energy centers, energy's flowing beautifully, you feel light, you feel good. But now how do you maintain that state of being? If you don't have that self-awareness, if you don't have these tools, after some time, you're going to pretty much end up where you were. And so yoga is almost like, if I can say, your maintenance program of through the breath work, through the postures, you're basically keeping that high energy going so you can maintain those that energy from the Reiki session.
And it's specific yoga because, society today, it's like you get yoga and you get yoga, and then you get Pilates and you get Pilates with everything going on. It's like fitness yoga, I see a lot of these things on Instagram where they say, this is not really yoga. Isn't this sport hit workout that everyone is making or selling it lately out to be? So the recovery part of it, is it a specific training of yoga or any form of yoga, or is it mainly focused on breath work there?
So it's very unique to each person. And why I like doing the Reiki session first is because it can say it reveals the needs of the body, of the mind, of the spirit. So, for example, if I have worked on someone and there is a lot of pain on the heart, or a lot of anxiety in the stomach, or a lot of mental energy going on, then I will use the yoga positions and the yoga meditations and breath work for like to heat,
so
to build on
thing, like
that exactly. And so, which is really great. But then also working with the meditation, like for example, if a lot came up in their session of unworthiness, for example, or lack of purpose or focus, then I will curate specific meditations and visualizations to really help them get clear on that, or to anchor that in more into their being. So it's a very, very personalized journey that evolves as I work with each person. It's like as you remove one layer, there's another layer.
It's growth at the end of the day.
And so it's an individual spiritual journey.
And I'm wondering, before you actually did the Reiki training, when you think back now, have you ever, I don't know how it works, like you say you pick up visions, is it only in a Reiki session, or have you actually taught a group class and picked up stuff from individuals in the class beforehand, going like, oh, that's like, just brush it off, where now if you have to think back to it, like, I actually got like, you got messages from the people in your class. Has that ever happened to you?
Actually, no, not in a yoga class. I'll get intuition of maybe postures they need to do, or things they shouldn't do, or things like that. But it's not my intention in the space. I'm not, when I'm
not zoning in on that.
When I go do the Reiki, I'm literally bringing my awareness into your body. I'm literally moving my focus to you. Whereas that's not my intention in a yoga class space. I'm just holding the space and guiding the energy.
You want to safe bubble.
Yeah, but I definitely have experiences where I do receive an insight and it's something to tell a friend, or just had this idea, this thing has just come through about you, and then I'll tell the friend and they'll be like, no, that's crazy because this and this just happened and that's exactly what is going on, so things like that. And that's where, again, the yoga has just supported this, because it's that third eye, and you work a lot with the balancing of your chakras and energy centers. And in Kundalini yoga especially, you do a lot of meditations where you draw light energy in and you visualize light energy going out. So it's been a process of getting to this point of learning how to receive, I guess, interpret these vibrations and get the insight of what that energy is actually meaning.
Do you remember that book, The Secret?
Yes.
How would you link that to Reiki and stuff? Because I remember it was all about energy and putting things out in the universe. What you speak is important. And because I remember I read it, it was 2008, 2007, and we were going through that huge recession. And I was in a corporate job, and I've always wanted, since I was young, wanted to be a flight attendant. But I was also at a point where I was like, financially, I can't just quit and now go do training. And I read The Secret, and I don't know if it was like a mind shift or something, but it was like a few days after finishing the book, we were called in to say we're being retrenched and we're getting payment packages. And I was like, no, thanks. This can't be happening, because this is exactly what I've been basically praying for. And that's when I was like, oh my goodness. And since then, I'm a firm believer of what you put into the universe will come back tenfold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's again that original thing I said of coming into the awareness that we are energetic beings living in an energetic universe, that every thought, every word, every action, every experience holds an energetic frequency, an energetic blueprint that goes out and is essentially reflected back to you. And that is why Reiki is so important, because you have your bubble of energy that holds a certain frequency. And so if you are holding that density, if you're holding resentment, if you're holding lack of self-belief, that is your energy embodiment. And so everything you experience in your life is going to be of that light vibration. You're going to always feel like people are against you. You're going to always feel like shit's hard. You're going to always feel like you're going against the grind, because this is the energy you're holding. And so what Reiki does is it clears that out, opens everything up, and literally raises you onto a higher frequency, reconnects you with your joy, reconnects you with your truth, so that you're now emitting a much higher frequency. And my clients always tell me how, like, wow, life's just so much easier now. I'm so much more in the flow. Like, so much, everything's just working out. And it's because simply you've shifted your frequency to a higher vibration. And that's how reality works. You have people operating down here at dense, heavy vibrations. Everything's hard. Everything's a struggle. I can't do this because of that. And everything in their life is like that, because that's where the frequency they're operating on. Whereas other people on a much higher vibration, everything's an opportunity. Everything's being created from a place of joy. The people that they attract to are helping them. And so their life is on a much easier, lighter, abundant vibration. And so that's what people need to also come to understand as they expand their consciousness, is that reality is not finite. It's not set. It's not purely physical. As I said, like right now, we are creating what is going to happen in 1 minute's time. We can choose to jump up and down on the couch. We can go get tea. We can go get water. We can go to the toilet. We are choosing what happens next. And that is what it is, enlightenment, becoming the conscious creator. What are you creating for yourself in your life? Because right now you're creating the next moment. And your state of being is the energy that is being poured into the next moment. So what are you pouring into the next moment?
It's a bit scary when you think about it, because if you use your energy at its full capacity, you become unstoppable, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the journey we all on, is to remember, is to remember how powerful we are. Because it's easy to be a victim. It's easy to say, I'm here because of this and that. It's easy to sit back and be like, you know. And so that's why I say the healing journey, or choosing this path, is for the courageous. Because it is about taking self-responsibility. I am the one who is creating all of this.
That's very true.
And that's where your power comes from. You're taking your power back and saying, I'm the one. And so it's a very powerful thing.
This is my second session with you. And in the first one and this one, of course, you always refer back to a past life. Well, I always joke, that's something I joke about, say, oh, my past life, I was probably this and this and this. But I never actually, if I think about it now, maybe I'm silly when I think about it, or stupid, but I never really, it's like I can't comprehend that we actually had a past life. And it's funny, with the first session you picked up like I was a warrior in my first, remember?
Yes.
I was a warrior in my first session that we did, or you picked up a warrior, like full shield, like the whole kebab, like the knight in shining armor thing. And this time around, it was also a very high up, powerful type of energy in my past life that you picked up.
Yes.
So past lives, explain that to me, because I still can't grasp that I had a past life.
Yeah, so I mean, it is something to grasp. And essentially what it again comes down to, if you think of yourself as energy, if you think of your soul as pure light, like each person's soul is just, when I see the soul of a person, it's just the most vibrant, illuminating light. And what we know about energy is it can never be destroyed. It can never be destroyed. It only transmutes, carries on the journey. And so it is coming into quite a higher understanding that maybe doesn't resonate with everyone, and that's fine. Everyone's truth is their truth. But in a Reiki perspective, and what I've seen in Reiki, this is what comes through, is that in this lifetime, we are these physical bodies, right? And when we die, it is simply the physical body that dies. But the light of the soul, the journey of the soul continues. And so we have lived many, many lives. We have lived many incarnations. And each time your soul is coming to refine itself, it's coming to learn, it's coming to grow more, it's coming to carry on that soul journey to learn. And every time it goes back into the nature of all that is, and then it comes down into like a denser form to learn and refine, and then it goes back. And so if you think about the universe or all that is, it's infinite, it's timeless, it's eternal. And so is our soul. And so what happens, that comes up a lot in Reiki, is that the traumas we have in this life, or the patterns or the certain situations we find ourselves in, is actually because of certain past life karmas. Karma is
karma is a bitch.
Karma is simply, for every action there is a reaction. What you give out, you get back.
Maybe not in this lifetime,
Exactly.
but that's why they say that in the next one.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. And it's again, there's that thing of energy cannot lie. What you put out is what is going to come back to you. So I had an amazing session with a woman who in this lifetime has skin cancer and skin disease. And so when we went into the healing, it came up that she actually had a past life in biblical times where she had a child out of wedlock and she was completely shunned by society, like literally an outcast, and lived on the streets. People treated her like absolute dog, like she was nothing. And through that treatment, she developed this deep belief. She basically took on that energy of self-rejection, self-shame. She believed she was worthless. She believed she was an outcast. She took that state of being on. And to such a degree that she actually got leprosy in that lifetime. And so, anyway, we facilitated the healing around it, but essentially her soul still carried that energy or essence of self-shame, self-rejection. All of that energy was still in her soul. And that is what made her susceptible to the skin cancer and skin disease again in this lifetime. So we had to go back and heal that so that the healing can take place in this lifetime.
I've always had that belief that our souls live on. I've always known that, but I've never linked with like past lives. And because I know the soul is there, but you have to believe, or if you've lost someone that you love a lot, you just have to have that their soul is still there, not that they just, it's not like that poof and they're gone. And I did a session with someone, and I don't remember what it was called, but it wasn't a Reiki session, and I wish I can remember what it was called. But it was also where she, like, assume she goes into the energy levels of where you are, and it's so funny. This was before we got married. So before Cedric and I even spoke about, because Cedric and I, after the death of my dad, never wanted kids actually. Like, we were like firmly against having kids. Mostly because in our minds we were like, the world is so overpopulated as it is, and like, what benefit will us adding more people to this universe give us? And funny enough, Cedric's mom actually sat us down one day and said, "You guys, I want it." But she said, she understands where we're coming from, but at the end of the day, people are the ones that will change the world. And she said, your little human that you will hopefully decide to bring into the world might be the one bringing change to the world. That's true. And that's where our mind shifts changed, and we were like, oh crap, maybe we are taking away the next healer of the universe. But before that, now when we actually, so this lady, she spoke to me, and after we now said, okay, we're going to get married, we will start thinking about kids now, keep everyone happy. But we said, we're going to name, if we have a son, he will be named after my dad, Yuan. And the lady, she said, okay, my dad came through. Oh, I guess she was like a medium of sorts. My dad came through, and and I could physically feel him come through, because I got this heavy feeling, and she said, oh, he's next to you, and he just put his arm around me. And I was like, oh. But she said, he's got one thing I want to tell you. Do not name your son after me.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like, but then I should have actually kept that he knew we were going to have a son.
She made the decision to name it after.
Yes.
Yeah.
And very funny, I had a very vivid dream. I'm trying to think. I was very early on in my pregnancy, like 6 weeks. Very early, like 6 before you even know what you're having. And I had a dream of I was in this building, like lots of layers. It was like a huge mall. Imagine a mall, and I'm on this escalator. And I'm going up, and I see the back of my dad sitting at a bar on a high stool, talking to a little boy. But it's a blonde little boy. And to me, I didn't click, okay, blonde. I went to my sister's son, like, oh, okay, I'm dreaming about my sister's son and my dad having a conversation. But I'm convinced that it was my dad chatting to Leo.
Yes.
Like,
yes,
it is.
Sure.
So we didn't name Leo, obviously, after Johan, because my dad came through and told me very strictly, no, do not name your son after
He's not
me.
really a Johan.
Yes. And actually said something about giving his own identity, which I thought was very sweet. So he's Leo Johan Arnold. He's named after both his grandfathers. But it's funny because during the pregnancy, Cedric and I always joked and said that this child is an old soul because I had this craving for old music always. And so I always, and even if you look at him now, he's like a very calm, wise beyond his ages type of child. And it makes sense now that the journey of the souls basically passing through their next lives. But I always have this, I obviously always hope that it's like my dad reincarnated coming through.
Yeah.
But it's not him because he already told me, sorry,
Yeah.
that's not happening. But it's just when you think about all these things happening in your life,
yes,
it's all energy related.
Yes. Yeah, and it's beautiful. I mean, it doesn't always happen, but I've also, during sessions, if there's, for example, lots of grief still sitting there for a loss or a death, then I have had times where the person comes through and I channel a message. And again, I feel the shivers on my arms. I see them. And then there's always a message. And what it's shown me is it's like the veil between here and the spirit world. It's so thin. It's so thin. Like if you can literally imagine for a moment you just lost your body and you were a spirit, you would still like be here basically, you know? And it's that thin. And I think that brings so much comfort to people who have lost because it is that feeling that they're gone forever, that illusion of loss. And to just know that soul, that energy, that love is actually always around you. And that's always really the message that comes through from the loved ones. I'm always with you. My love is always there for you to access. And so I think it's a lot of comfort that people can have. Also people who fear death, you know, I think fear is such a thing around it, even though it's the most natural thing. That it is, from what I've seen, it's just like a natural transition. It's just a natural transition into the next state of being. And your journey just carries on from there.
And obviously young kids are a lot more susceptible to the I don't want to say the afterlife, but that connection between here and there. Because that's why I also say Leo is so in tune.
It's because they're in the present.
Yes, but he was about, trying to think, was about 18 months. I'm trying to think if Zoe was just born or if I was pregnant with Zoe. I think she was just born. She was about 2. And obviously I never speak to my kids or haven't spoken to them about how my dad passed away because it's a bit of a traumatic, sad story. And I've got this little ID picture of my dad that I've had since he's been alive. It's always in my kitchen. It's always in our kitchen in this colorful little picture frame. And we were still in Hoedspruit living. And Cedric was in front of the stove cooking. I was sitting at the kitchen island. Zoe was definitely born already because she was in her seat on top of the island and we were talking, chatting, feeding Zoe. And Leo came, he could barely speak like properly. And he came and he looked at my dad's picture, he pointed and he said, Opa Owl. And Cedric literally is froze. He looked at me and we looked at him, we're like, Leo, what do you mean Opa Owl? He says, Opa Owl, boom boom owl. And Cedric, he literally, he turned off the gas stove, he went outside, and he was like,
it's too much.
And I just started crying, sitting there, and I was like, and I immediately, so we tried just like get this 2-year-old to explain to us, what do you mean? He said, no, Opa boo boo on his head. And immediately I was like, oh, wow, God, because that's how he passed away. Motorcycle accident. It was head trauma, unfortunately. So the first thing I did was freak out because now I'm like, who told my 2-year-old son about how my dad passed away? Like, who is that stupid? So I phoned my sister immediately, tell her, and she's like, why would I tell your 2-year-old son that? I'm not crazy. Phone my mom. Also, no, never. But we were like, how did he know that?
It's the energy.
And then I was obviously a bit upset with my dad for being like, really, you come through to my child and you have to traumatize him by telling him or showing him how you died, which I don't know. I believe you go back in the afterlife as your beautiful self. But I was like, come on, Dad, like you couldn't have come through like send me a different message, like, okay, you're there, but I was just like intense.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's exactly how it works.
But it's when you actually, I believe if you open yourself up to those messages, they come through a lot stronger than needed. And my dad actually came through a lot in the beginning stages. My dad never really comes through. I think I dreamed about him twice. Wow. It's not, which is a bit sad for me because you have that always like, well, like my sister will tell me, oh, I had a dream, or my aunt, I dreamed about your dad, and I'm like, why can't I just dream about him? And we should have
set a date. Set a date, yeah.
But I'm also too scared because the 2 times I have dreamed about him, it was not, it was once. He came to warn us. Oh. And someone in the family passed away.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm like, please don't come to me in a dream, like, unless you're giving me good news.
Yes.
Do not.
But you can do that before you go to bed. Just be like, close your eyes, Dad. I would love to connect. Like, let's go meet in the dream world.
Really?
Yeah. Definitely you can do that.
Oh.
Try it.
I'll try it. So tell me, do you have a moment or a transformation that left like a lasting impression with you, with any of the clients that you've worked with now?
Gosh, I feel like every session, as I said, is just so profound and I learn so much every time. But there's definitely been a few wow experiences. There's 2 things I'd like to share if that's okay. So the first one is lately I've been attracting women who are trying to fall pregnant, but for whatever reason, just aren't getting there. And it's been amazing to see with each woman what is their block, what is it that is blocking that energy to actually come in. And so a woman I did this past week, it was just so much fear of certain things from her childhood. What if that happens to my child? And so it's like you want this thing so badly, and we often do this in life. Want this thing so badly, but it's at the same time our biggest fear, because what if we get it and we lose it? Or what if something bad happens when I get it? So there's this push and pull energy. And so it was that. And then another woman I worked with, it was again a past life where she gave birth to a daughter in a time where it wasn't preferred. And so her child was taken away from her straight after birth. And she still had that trauma and that loss and that fear of actually having a child. What if something happens? What if it's taken away? And so it's just incredible to see how energy works. It's like there needs to be this flow. And it's beautiful to facilitate that healing and opening for women who want to fall pregnant. Another woman was sexual trauma. She had experienced sexual trauma, and literally all the energy in her uterus was contracted.
Protecting it.
Yeah, was literally like. And so even though she was trying to conceive, the energy she had when conceiving was like, don't you fucking dare.
Yes.
And so you have to heal that and actually bring the body and spirit into a space that's actually open and feels safe. A woman needs to actually feel safe to conceive. And so that's been really, really powerful to see and learn and facilitate for women. The other one I wanted to share was, and I just love the story because it shows this quantum entanglement or this quantum connection. So I was working on a client on his heart and just clearing a lot of emotional energy. He was going through a divorce at the time. And once I had cleared all the emotion and working on the heart, I just got a very clear visual of a thorn in the heart. And I just felt or got the sense of like a love lost or a past lover. And so I asked the client, I said, before you married your wife, was there another love,
first love
or another woman? And he was like, yes. And he told me about this woman that, you know, she was like unlike anyone he'd ever met. And they got on so well, and it was this love and this connection. But for whatever reason, they couldn't be together. Okay. I think she was actually with someone else.
The timing wasn't
right.
The
timing wasn't right. And so he had to let her go. And then he met his wife quite soon after while they were dating. But he never really had let go of this other woman. And so he essentially married his wife, knowing that he would never quite love his wife or didn't quite have the connection with her that he had with this other woman, but decided to marry her anyway. And so they ended up getting divorced down the line. And so I removed the thorn and brought healing to the heart. The next day, I receive a message from the client. He has not spoken to this past other woman in like 15 years. The next day, he receives a message from her on Facebook saying, I found you on Facebook. I'm coming to Mauritius in a few months' time, and I want. Jeez. So that for me was like, it shows you the energetic connection. Yes. She had felt that. She'd felt that release, and it was triggered on her side. And so this is also what's so profound when we do the family healing and the family work, is that even though I'm working with you here now, healing your relationship with your father or whatever it might be, he is receiving that healing on his side too. And that whole energy connection is being healed. So that for me was just this
that's
validation.
Such a beautiful story though. Imagine him telling that to his grandkids one day, or so well. I don't know if they're old enough to have kids.
So I just love that story because for me also as a practitioner, it was like, there's truth to what you're doing here.
Yes.
This is shifting things in the quantum realm, and it is felt.
It's your why. This is why I'm doing this.
Yeah. So that's probably one of the great little stories. But as I said, every session is just so profound and reveals a deeper and deeper layer to me of what's really going on.
Mm. And how do you approach personal wellness and energy alignment in your own life? Because obviously, like you said, you do create a very safe space for you personally, but how do you mentioned that if you are a Reiki practitioner, that you can do it on yourself?
Yes, and you have to.
Okay. So do you do your own sessions? You obviously do yoga quite often. What's your personal wellness ritual and energy alignment rituals that you do?
That's a great question. So I think in my line of profession, I mean, my absolute core, my cornerstone is my vibration and my energy. It is the pillar of my being. I know if I'm not in a right state of being within myself, that is going to affect my day, my family, my children, my work. Everything comes from me. And so my absolute priority is to maintain myself in an energetic alignment. And that is a daily practice for me, whether it's a meditation before bed, whether it's doing my own yoga or whatever it is. It's a daily practice of alignment for me. That is my highest priority. And even to the point, for example, this past week, I had a session scheduled with someone, and I was just not feeling good within myself. My energy felt scattered. I felt overwhelmed. I felt just disconnected from myself. And I know I can't hold space for another person if I'm not energetically sound within myself. Yes. So I actually postponed the session and I took the whole morning off. I probably did I did 3 back-to-back 45-minute meditations. Oh, wow. And just consolidated my own energy. I just do Reiki on myself as well. And I see what needs to go, what needs to come. For me, it's so important to have my energy contained. Okay. I like to be, to really have such a solid, stable energy within myself. Because that allows me to facilitate these sessions and to hold these spaces for other people. If I'm scattered, if my energy is leaking, if I'm not present, I can't hold that space. I can't facilitate that in someone else if it's not within me. And so it is the absolute priority of my day to maintain my own state of being. Okay. And as you know, as a parent, yes. Which is very easier said than done, but your kids feel your energy. Your kids feed off your energetic state of being. And so, it's really vital. And again, coming back to just that, what we're speaking about, manifestation and the law of attraction, I know that sometimes the most productive thing I can do in my morning is to elevate my frequency because I'm emitting that energy. That is way more productive than sitting in front of a computer and hustling for an hour trying to get shit done, because I can simply raise my frequency and just attract that thing to me. Yes. So it's a very different way of operating in the world. You kind of step out of that hustle, do culture, forced to make things happen, push to make it work. But you can just raise your frequency, call it in, and just allow a way more easeful flow. And that's the feminine energy. Feminine just receives and attracts and draws everything in because she is the vibration of it.
Oh. So I ask everyone, your 3 timeless tips for everyone listening. Any 3 that you want to give.
Timeless. Okay, if you are living in 2025 and are not practicing meditation yet, I think that is vital to start yesterday. Yeah.
I don't get much. I don't know why I feel like my brain doesn't want to shut off, but I also listened the other day, they said it's a day you have to practice it, become good at it. Otherwise you're going to feel like, what am I doing?
Yeah, and it's not about, especially in the beginning, about turning off the thoughts. It's about just observing them, because what meditation is about is building that relationship with your mind, building what am I actually thinking about all day? Are these thoughts serving me? Do I want to think this about this person? Do I want to even think that about myself? And becoming conscious of those thought patterns to the point where you can be like, oh my gosh, did I just actually tell myself I was ugly? Yeah. Shut. Yes. That's not serving me. And you begin to reframe your thoughts to more positive, more self-serving. This is the mastery of the mind. The mind creates your experience. The mind shapes your perception, your experience of reality. And so that's what meditation teaches you, is to how to begin to develop that relationship with your mind. And so in the beginning, it is chaotic. It is like you're just watching all these thoughts go by. And it's just interesting in the beginning to see what you actually think about. And then, as you said, in time, you can begin But there's so many different forms of meditation. I personally love just going onto YouTube and whatever I'm going through at the time, like listen to a guided abundance meditation. And I just put my earpods in and I just listen to that. Or I listen to whatever divine feminine meditation or whatever it is. I like listening to guided meditations. Okay. So I would say that's a great place to start. But it is something that takes practice.
Yes, yeah, it does.
But it is such a vital tool because our minds can just get so chaotic and it keeps us out of the gift of the moment. It keeps us out of the magic that is all around us always. So it helps you to just live in that moment-to-moment celebration of the gift of life. And you start to live from this place of inspiration and awe and gratitude because you're present to all the blessings that surround you. And that's what meditation teaches you, how to really be in the moment. Okay. And so the second timeless tip would be to follow your truth, to follow your joy. I think so often in life we just feel we have to follow this structured path. Yes. We have to follow the grind. We have to do what we've been told we need to do, at the expense of listening to that
my heart wants.
Yearning and that truth. And this has been really my journey in my career of, being told or being conditioned to this corporate life and this corporate way and thinking, okay, well, this is what I need to do. And then every time I would get into a job and be sitting there, my soul would just be like,
dying a little
bit. Yeah. And it took so much courage. I went through many cycles of getting a job, and it was also, as you know, yes, challenging being an entrepreneur. And then you have the financial thing. You're like, oh, well, let me just get a job. At least then I know. But every time I would go back, I would just be like, this is not who I am. This is not who I am. And that calling was so strong, and I needed to find the courage to actually be like, to follow my truth. I have to follow this fire inside that is telling me this is who I am. And even though it was so hard many of the times, it's led me to where I am now, just really established in my gifts and really established in what I do and who I am. And it's like every time I have gone back into a job, it's just like that reconfirmation yes, that this is not my path. This is not who I am. And then just feeling that joy every time I teach, feeling that pure alignment every time I facilitate a Reiki session. And that would be my timeless tip. to find the courage to step into your truth, because you will always be supported. You will always be supported when you step into that.
And the last one?
And the last one would be to eat healthily.
As much as possible.
Yeah. I think that's such a simple one, but a hard one in the society we live in, with so much processed food and so much unnatural food. And it's just, again, I see that in the Reiki session, the impact that has on the body. And to just remember, we are natural beings. We come from the earth. Our body is made to digest natural things. And when we eat unnatural things, it's like the body doesn't actually know what to do with that.
It's then blocked.
Exactly. And that's what begins to distort the cells of the body and becomes cancer and all those things, because you're actually sending things into your body that are not natural. So it's a simple one, but easier said than done. But
yes,
yeah.
Well, it's true. The food one is always a difficult one, because I've got a nutritionist coach, and the other day I was like, let me just go to the shop, do some groceries, and really focus on not easy way outs. Oh my goodness, was that an expensive round?
Yes.
And I got into the car, remember, I sent her a voice and everything. I'm like, listen, minutes. You will not believe this, but I bought half of the amount of food that I usually do. Mostly all healthy, like raw, beautiful, do my own things. And it was the same price as what I paid for 2 weeks worth of groceries.
Yeah.
And when I told her the price, she's like, oh, that's my budget a month, basically, that you just spent on stuff for like a week.
Yeah.
And when I showed her what I bought, she's like, insane.
Yeah, but that's Mauritius also. The fruits and vegetables.
Which is very sad for us.
I know.
Because it makes it very difficult to eat organic and fresh and healthy.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, I'm not saying don't have the piece of chocolate cake or don't have
everything in moderation at the end of the day.
Now and then, like just enjoy your life. But I think in terms of your day-to-day stable diet, it's also a bit of a shift in mindset of like food being for pleasure and food being for health and to literally keep you alive.
Feeding and just enjoyment.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you a sunrise or sunset person?
In terms of being awake.
Do you prefer sunrise or sunsets?
Sunsets.
Okay, if you can have a sunset stroll with anyone, who would be dead or alive?
Oh my goodness. One person?
It can be a group.
Okay. Like that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
You're a ray of light to the real lives. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's so wonderful to have a space where you can just really unpack this and share. So thank you for letting me share my passion with you.
I love you so much.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you for having me.
Yay!